disclosure, this is my first time moderating a panel, so I don't know what the terms are, the right way to do it, but we're gonna wing it and do our best. Before I jump in and introduce everybody, welcome to the NFT panel. Question for everyone in the room, who's holding any cryptocurrency right now? And it's most of you, and how many of you have lost money this year? Okay, so let the record show everyone has lost money this year. We're here because we believe in the work that we're doing. This isn't about getting rich, it's about pushing the music industry forward. And to my left, I have all these professionals who I definitely want them to introduce themselves. We'll just go.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Christoph Straub. I'm the founder and CEO of Global Rockstar. So we are a digital music label publisher and a music NFT company. And we enable music fans to become shareholders of hit songs. And we also have launched collectibles this year. So we enable music lovers this way to become owners of a piece of music history.
Hi, my name is Adeline Beving. I'm head of innovation at SACEM. SACEM is a French CMO and one of the world leaders in that sector.
Yes, good morning. My name is Goran Anderson. I work with Christoph and Global Rockstar, head our international activities. I also, some of you know me from before, I've been producing records, helped produce music tech startups, and I love innovation, but my first passion is actually creating real, valuable, great music, because I think that's the underlying real value. And then if we have great technology, then that can make something great even greater. And I think a lot, the reflection on, the people that lost money, there was probably no real value in what they invested into. So we are here to change that by focusing on creating fantastic value in the music and then connecting that with the fans, which is really what I think we've always been doing, trying to find the fastest way from fans to the people that create what they love.
Hello, I'm Gareth Deakin. Some of you know me already. Hello, those that don't. I am currently Chief Marketing Officer for a music NFT and digital collectible platform called Record Shop. We're a predominantly electronic music focused platform for music creators, typically existing independent labels and artists, to release music and what we call digital collectibles as NFTs in a sort of collectible fan-first format. I'm sure we'll talk more about all of that. One thing I was going to say, we've already mentioned some jargon in the NFT space, like digital collectibles and fractional right sharing and a bunch of other stuff. We're in an interesting place with NFTs. I think that the bubble bursting is a good thing because we can actually focus on building some real value. I think one of the takeaways of my last 6 to 9 months, kind of firstly just interested in this space, and then the last 6 months in the whirlwind of like how far we've come. We have a number of different use cases for NFTs. Most meetings that you have or introductions with people start with like, what flavor of NFT are we actually talking about? Which I think for anyone who's actually in the space from a music point of view, most of us are committed to trying to build this into the fabric of Web3 and believe the technology will fade into the background. And the hope is you start a meeting not needing to explain what an NFT is, because you don't generally start most meetings in Web2 explaining how the internet works. So I think the fact that we have a number of different use cases bearing out at the moment is a good indicator to where we're going in the future, and that thesis kind of plays out in the near term.
Gareth, thank you for reminding us that the bubble is burst, because I feel it every single day.
Fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Amen. Speaking further on the bubble bursting, Christoph, you're on record, I think just 2 weeks ago, you were at a conference for Music Ally Sandbox Summit, was that correct? And you mentioned that the NFT market needs a crypto winter. Could you explain why you think the crypto winter is essential, and how is it going to affect the day-to-day operations and the future of your business?
What we've seen last year was thousands of projects coming up, NFT projects, many meaningless projects, ideas that promised things that never were fulfilled, people running away with the money. So as every time when there is innovation, there is a lot of people, and a gold rush, because this is what it was in 2021. There are many gold diggers trying to get rich in a shortcut, but this is now the time where, let's say, the winners are separated from the losers, which is good. It was the same when the dot-com bubble burst. Some survived, and these were the ones that built their models on a sustainable model, following legal and regulatory, or let's say respecting all legal and regulatory stuff, because this was another problem in the last year. So many came up and did not respect copyright, did not respect whatever there needs to be to comply to regulatory. So I believe this needed to come, this big burst of the bubble, and it's good for the business. Those who create real value, and it's possible to create real value within NFTs, will survive. Those who have great projects will survive. And also those who solve problems will survive, because NFTs can also solve problems.
Totally agree with you. Speaking on innovation, or?
No, I just want to add one thing, because I totally agree with Christoph. I think the other thing, in the same way that blockchain doesn't have to be inherently linked to cryptocurrencies, the same is true with NFTs. I think some of the job we've all got to do is about building value to distance ourselves a little bit from cryptocurrency. The speed this market moved, and the model that came to predominate for the last 6 months or so, was driven very much from a market of how do you value and create a model around digital art. And we kind of inherited that and ran with it, and the speculation and other stuff that came with it as a defining business model for where the value was is kind of what's died with the crypto bubble fading, and I think that's a good thing in terms of kind of where we're placed. The other thing that's underlying that, actually, most cryptocurrency is held predominantly in the US. It's 70-80% of it held by white males, concentrated in 2 or 3 urban locations around the US. That's very far from the utopia that's spun out about Web3, crypto, et cetera, and the world it's going to build. And very, very different, I think, from the world we want for artists, music, and the ecosystem that we want to support through kind of this kind of technology.
Thank you. Anybody else want to build on that? I'll keep it moving then. Adeline, we were speaking about innovation just a moment ago, and I would love to hear a little bit more about your experience at SASM, heading up innovation there, and the timeline of when NFT and Web3 became sort of a priority, and what the future of that looks like for your organization going forward.
Yeah, sure. And actually, following up on the last comment, I think we're really in line here, because we also see NFTs as a tool, and we are, just like everyone else here, exploring use cases. And based on what we aim for, which is bringing value to authors, composers, and publishers in the music industry worldwide, we're really trying to differentiate what is in their benefit and what is not. And so, first of all, we are at the analysis point of things, and trying for ourselves to really understand what it is all about. And we're in the full test and learn process, and sharing all these learnings with our community is our priority. In the process of doing that, we're not just by ourselves. So I'm managing something called the SASM Lab. So it is our innovation lab. And what we try and do is work alongside with innovative actors to understand their business model, understand where they're trying to go, and see how we can get there together to bring value to our members. So doing that, we organize experimentations based on NFTs, and looking at how it can be helpful in terms of maybe monetization, which is obviously a priority to, bring extra added value to our members in addition to what they can and cannot get from platforms. Traditional streaming platforms. Secondly, we're looking at any way it can help them engage their fans, which is obviously a very strong use case for us, and maybe develop services around that. And thirdly, there are options that are completely away from any financial aspects, which are really based on how it can accelerate, for instance, the distribution and the operations in the very process of author rights, collection and distribution. So how can the whole market take advantage of that to make things easier for creators at the end of the day? So these are all the ways that we're looking at this, and we're prioritizing it, yes, but as a complementary addition to what we already do, which is also extremely an extreme priority to still work in the Web 2 environment properly. So, making things work on both feet. Yeah.
Thank you. Goran, I had some questions for you because I read a little bit about what you do as well. Fascinating work as always. I think you had mentioned, maybe in an interview or at another panel, you said that some people are viewing it, NFTs as a way to fractionalize ownership and split up royalties. So I would love to hear about how you can see that happening and on what sort of timeline we can expect something like that.
Well, I think as what I usually do, I look at what is the business like today, and fractional ownership in rights is actually not something new. If you have, a band, they might create songs together. They might decide to share the ownership, even if they don't. We have Elvis Presley. Interesting. I actually knew his publisher. He actually never wrote a song, but he insisted on having a piece of the pie, and everybody gladly accepted that. So that fractional ownership is not anything new. I think what we recognized when I started working with Christoph, with NFTs, we can actually then document it, and it's never going to be then, well, it might be disputed, but it's, at least there's a proper record that stays with it. Then another thing that always been part of my work, working with artists, there's a lot of people in between, and I've been part of those, but I always been saying we are sort of subject to change or being kicked out. What really matters is the individuals that create the song and the fans that listen to it. And everything else in between need to change. One of the biggest disruptions that happened a long time ago was the introduction of radio, when music publishers made their money from printing sheet music, and people had pianos in their homes or guitars or whatever. So then the publishers decided we need to license radio, and they built a very sustainable business model. And I think we have to look at what is happening right now and where can we actually step in and take the tech at our disposal today and apply it to solving problems right in front of us. So this is not really anything new. The tech makes it up to date, more scalable hopefully, and more transparent, and also should speed up the process of getting paid, because that's another, if anyone comes from another industry and look at the amount of time it takes for a songwriter to get paid, it's you can die or go out of business before you actually get that check. So I think here is where I think we can really help and make things really work better, make sure that there's transparency, and make it easier to solve disputes.
Please.
Sorry, I would love actually to understand better how you do that, because historically in France, publishers got together 170 years ago to say, if we actually want to get revenue for the distribution of our music, for the broadcast of our music, we need to get together and have common agreements with anyone who's broadcasting music, such as radios or any other actor, or nowadays streaming platforms, etc., because we are stronger together. And so this is why places or organizations like SACEM exists. So I'm really wondering how you make this new model work, considering how the collective management system has proved all right. And sorry, also because I just arrived in this area and discovered how complex the whole operational part is. So how do you do it?
Absolutely, and also I think there's a risk of when you're involved in tech, that you look at someone that want to disrupt PROs and CMOs. I'm the contrary. I like to strengthen them. I see, especially the traditional PROs, main benefit of this actually, it's an association of composers and publishers. I think it's extremely valuable. Then there's also the problems to be solved, which is then being referred to usually as the back office. I think that is where we can come in and help, and working with others. We're not looking to be the only one providing solutions. And I think where probably what we do with Global Rockstar is more of we sell now fractional ownership in the songs, for instance. We don't do anything to disrupt you. Actually,
no, that's fine. I'm just really trying to understand the process, because again, like I was working in the radio before. That's where I come from, and I just arrived 9 months ago in the CMO environment, and discovered how incredibly complex it is to get data from, for instance, DSPs all the way down to the right owners.
And that will be solved collectively, but between all the stakeholders that is willing to work in consort with each other. Actually, I was supposed to bring someone we are working with a new project. The sort of not announced name, surprise artist. I can maybe make one example of one thing that we feel is a really cool thing to enhance the value in a song. So we then go in, let's say we have a great song from way back. Actually, one of the songs that came up in one of the meetings I had recently in Paris, a friend of mine signed Grace Jones to Island Records. And one of the recordings that became a big hit was actually a French song, La Vie en Rose, which might be in public domain. But let's assume that it wasn't in public domain, and let's assume that we would do this deal today. We would then go to the songwriter of that particular song and say, why don't you allow us to offer, let's say, 10% a writer share in that song to the fans? We would then actually pay for we would do a normal valuation, like 15, 20, whatever, 30 times NPS, and we would then sell it to the fans. We would then take that same song and pick a contemporary artist. If it was back in time, it would be Grace Jones. And we said, why don't you record this new song? And we will then offer it also to the fans to become investors then in the master, maybe up to 40%. That's usually our model, right, Christoph? So instead of just us as a record company owning a piece of that master, also the fans could. We will then put a lot of money into marketing that song. In our view of how we add value, we will hopefully create a new hit, but the underlying song, which might have been forgotten, hopefully not, but let's assume that it was, will also then increase in value. And all the recordings, let's just take My Way, right? And a song that's probably been recorded more times than it should have. If we do something with that song, most people don't even know that Paul Anka actually wrote it. He will then be able to buy another jet. He has one already, I know. And he will also put people to shame that think Frank Sinatra wrote that song. So this is how we think actually getting the fans to engage the quickest way with the creation of a song and the artist that records it is, for me, it's an incredibly cool thing to do. And I think it creates value. But it doesn't solve all the problems that you're trying to solve, because that's a problem for all of us to solve together. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, yet again, it's all about how you get the distribution data and be able to pay the people according to what you say, because the coolness it's obvious. But and just one last thing, if I may, like we're really interested in discussing that and understanding how you actually work and compare it with the way we work, because we are trying to we are licensing, we are working with platforms and trying to.
And I'll soon be in Paris, and now when Cecile is the new boss, I'm happy to come back to Cecile. I'm
Fantastic.
a big fan of hers.
Well, because it's good, because we're licensing with platform when we understand the business model, right?
Did we just see a partnership happen? What's going on?
Live on stage, it's pretty good, right?
We will need a little bit more info to make sure.
Love to see it. Please.
I just want to add one thing, that just building on top of that. Some of the complexity, like there's loads of complexity that comes up with all of this space. Some of which we all manufacture, like whether we're the platforms and we assume everyone's further ahead than they actually are in knowledge, or individually in terms of what we're thinking about. Some of it's more straightforward. An NFT, lots of us get confused about it being the asset itself, like as in it's, you know, it's a picture of an ape or it's a, you know, JPEG of something else or a piece of music, when in fact it really is, it's a token, right? It's a uniquely identifiable piece of information that means I can identify that you own a particular, or you are one of 100 people that possess this token. That token is somewhere or other gives you access to some kind of content, and behind that token is typically a smart contract, which is to what Goran was talking about, where you can embed a lot of this information. Once you understand that those are the things that we're building from, lots of the innovation that we're talking about is easier to kind of start thinking about, whether you're thinking about how do we streamline some of the opportunities in the Web3 world that's coming up in terms of interoperability between services, revenue collection, data collection, or if you're thinking about the consumer end in terms of like what do we build for fans, both in terms of fan engagement. We've done things like not with fractional ownership, but a perception of ownership where fans, like token-gated communities of fans, have been able to come in and help complete tracks. So like the track's been 70% complete and they've joined for the last final version, and then those 300 fans have owned this particular collectible and this particular piece of music that's gone with it. But I think also in a streaming world, one of the challenges is all of the people that listen mostly to stream are all the same, right? Like you don't necessarily know that like Tack listens to like 3 bands and that's it, instead of me who listens to like thousands on forever. One of the things interesting about the direct-to-fan overlap that we've obviously been doing for a while, but NFT really kind of supercharges, is suddenly you can actually start to identify those fan bases in a way that means you can build things for them. I can understand that actually Tack, because he listens to like 3 bands and one of them's the Rolling Stones, he's way more valuable to the Rolling Stones than I am as a fan. So what would you build for him to deepen that relationship and create more value as a kind of virtuous circle? And I think, so looking at the other end of the spectrum, that's the big opportunity that sits in this space, and making that something that's accessible for most artists in this space, not just those that are, have the biggest teams that can analyze tons of data, et cetera, et cetera.
I agree. Creating value is the most important thing when it comes to putting out an NFT. A lot of times when I see them coming out, it's like, who actually cares? Like, what is the value of just a little image that goes with the song? Like, what's the value add? And I would love to hear from you, Gareth, on how do you market the NFTs that you actually put out through Record Shop, and what's the major keys to success there?
Hard work. In all honesty, it is hard work. The artists that succeed and partners that succeed in this space are the ones that show up and do the hard work. There's a couple of things. Like, one is deciding who is this going to be for. I think in most people's dream scenario, this is for their super fans. In actual reality, I think what we've found predominantly to this point, that's hard. Right? There's quite a lot of hurdles and barriers to get people over in terms of understanding and making stuff like simple and straightforward for people. We've done a lot of work to do that, and I think we're on the road to making that possible. For the most part, most of the artists have been successful. They've been building new audiences, and that's been hard. So they've been turning up and doing things like Twitter Spaces. They've been turning up and doing Discord and AMAs and going into other communities. Like, one thing I will say that's very positive from a music point of view about the crypto community generally and NFT, it all comes baked in with community. So like the idea of being able to build fan bases from other fan bases you can identify overlap with is entirely doable. It just requires a lot of work. So I mean, we're effectively a platform. So we're not a retailer. So we're building a platform and tools for artists to be able to then build marketing campaigns, and we're trying to help those artists understand what success looks like and build better on-ramps for fans. I think if anyone's interested in this space and doesn't read Water and Music, which is Sherry Hughes' platform on kind of music and technology, it's probably the best resource on music NFTs out there. And I highly recommend reading some of the free articles or even the paid stuff. The research they've been doing across the community has been brilliant. One of the things that really stood out about like kind of fan onboarding, which is basically bringing people into this space, is actually stuff that doesn't scale is predominantly the stuff that's most successful. And some of that's down to the sort of the old Kevin Kelly thing of you need 1,000 fans to kind of be successful. In the NFT world, you're lopping a zero off of that. You need 100 fans that are basically really, really committed to be able to do that. It takes a lot of work to build those 100 fans, but once you do it and you build that community and you put the work in, like there's a real opportunity to build something that's valuable for the long term. So.
Great. And you mentioned hurdles that you're having to jump over all the time with Record Shop. Would you say that some of the biggest hurdles would be lack of like interoperability, the fact that a lot of these fans might not be familiar with cryptocurrency, and is there now an educational component that you have to add to onboard these potential customers?
Yeah, so I mean, we've actually built pretty low friction on ramps. So we got 82,000 wallets or users on the platform. So that's a pretty big number in music NFT terms, small number in terms of Spotify, etc. numbers. But the predominantly 99% of all payments on the platform are done in fiat currency. They're paid with credit card. Everything is priced on the site as that. There is NFT stuff on the site because there has to be in various places, but like it's very played down. So we deliberately built on-ramps that are very, very easy and friction-free. Generally in the space, though, the learning is quite hard. If you want to participate in a lot of the stuff, the biggest market is based on Ethereum, so one of the sort of blockchains and tokens in the space. That's the biggest liquidity pool. So that's like kind of where the majority. To your point about why would anyone buy this stuff, it's because they basically had an awful lot of Ethereum with nothing to do with it, and there's somewhere to park it that potentially you can have more agency over the value that, you know, stability-wise that's going on around it. But if you're not in that space, you have a lot of learning, teaching to do for the crypto crowd about why this thing is an NFT and it's valuable. If you are outside of that space, you still have learnings and teachings to do to kind of explain to people kind of how to get into this space. But also with artists. I mean, I think, you know, I've probably at this point pitched, I don't know, we've got 190 odd independent labels on the platform, about 600 to 700 artists being onboarded. I've pitched hundreds and hundreds of artists at this point, and whichever space they're in, from I'm literally on the edge of the building gonna jump because like the whole internet's changed again and I can't cope, to I've done my research, I've got stuck, or they're deep in it. You end up going through a process of actually talking people through the steps of actually it's not that dissimilar. One of the things that gets thrown at a lot of us in this space is like, well, you could just do all this stuff with Web 2. And it's like, yeah, but the future of doing this stuff with Web 3 is much better than doing it with Web 2 currently. And so I think, you know, and that's actually thrown at us often as a disparaging comment when actually it's a good thing. Because the secret to getting artists and fans in some ways in is making this stuff accessible, which is largely explaining a lot of this stuff through a Web 2 lens, which is entirely doable. But yeah, I mean, you know, there is consistently those kind of hurdles. And we're at a point where it's super new. Like, I don't think anyone's cracked the value proposition yet. Like, anyone who tells you they has, probably lying. Because, you know, really, this all really supercharged and kicked off. NFT's been around a long time, but this kicked off properly, you know, 6 to 9 months ago. And so we're at the very, very beginning of what was a very big acceleration curve in adoption. So.
Amazing. I have some open questions, unless anyone wants to build on that, but I have questions for the panel as well.
Yes, I would like to add on Gareth arguments. We've seen similar things here in the space of offering fractionalized ownership. The argument to get people on board is though pretty easy here. We started this in December 2017, telling people this is a newcomer, this is an up-and-coming artist. You can now buy shares of his future royalties from master and or publishing, and you'll be part of it for the term of copyright. So this is what we offered already at the end of 2017, and this was something where we did not really needed the artist to go out to do lots of marketing. Basically, people out there understood what it's about. They liked the way, the vision to accompany someone who's new in the business. They might not recoup quickly, that's what they understood, but wherever he might be in a few years, and they have a big chance to recoup if he continues to do music. And that's what we saw, that basically people who were not connected to the artist saw that opportunity, helped new artists to start their careers. And we've been very successful with this, signing, for instance, a 16-year-old boy 2 years ago. He's now the #1 in Austria, winning gold and platinum records, winning the Austrian Music Award, and making his early investors recouped in 1 year and making 700% of return of investment for them, and they continue to participate for 69 years. So in this way, we offer a little bit a different model. It's not established artists that say, fans, come here, I have NFTs for you. It's another model where absolutely no names can start to build their career with NFTs.
I just wanted to add to that in a CMO vision of NFTs, and I would just like to underline the fact that we really believe that it has huge potential, and that still needs to be explored. But in our vision, we want to build sustainable future for artists, for creators, for publishers. And so that's the way we try and learn and share experience, is how NFTs can be useful on the long run, not just at one point where you would, sell part of your work or a lot of your work, and then you would get money on the spot. But what happens later, and what happens especially if it gets big, and then you're deprived of your right and you're done. It's some kind of buyout. So that's something that we really want to teach and warn artists about, is the risk that NFTs looks like a really great short-term opportunity, but is actually a very bad choice on the long run if they want to make a living out of their art. So,
and actually, I completely concur. Some people that know me for a long time, I've always argued that creators should own their work and not sell it. And quite a few deals that I was involved with a long time ago, where I actually knew that the artist did own and had. The perception was that this artist was signed to Columbia Records, whatever. I actually knew that he owned it. And also now we know that some people are selling all those rights, which personally I think is kind of sad, because I think it's better to leverage your assets than selling them. And that's actually what we want to do, is to be a way to leverage those assets, not necessarily. So when we are talking about selling, is usually selling is the part of what you own as a creator. Because of course, but seen a lot in the media is these big catalog acquisitions, which we see ourselves more as another option for rights holders to work with us in selling parts of maybe one song instead of selling a whole catalog.
Amazing. Guys, thank you so much. We're out of time. I feel like I could talk another 30 minutes about this. I learned a lot today. I hope you all did too. Thanks to the panelists who joined us today. Thank you for joining us for these 30 minutes as well.